Thanks for tuning in and welcome to this week's review of Kickin' It Old School starring Jamie Kennedy.
Timmy, we gotta get the Funky Fresh Boys back together. It's time to say domo arigato and find your inner rubato. Domo. 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 Domo.
This spring.
I'm worried that 4 fat, dumb dance tards are gonna ruin what I've worked so hard for.
Man, where to begin? Imagine all the things bad about the 80s all in one film. This is kind of like the first Austin Powers movie when he was catching up on what he missed while being frozen, minus most of the humor. I'm a fan of Jamie Kennedy, not diehard, but I'm a fan nonetheless. And I took a gamble on this one, and man, I went home broke. I was really hoping for something like Malibu's Most Wanted, and I own that on DVD. I like Jamie Kennedy in movies, and I thought that he and Matt Lillard made Scream the cult classic it turned out to be. So he has the ability to be funny and carry some scenes in movies, but this one was just terrible. When watching this film, just think of Tom Hanks in Big, except not nearly as convincing. Instead of acting like an innocent 13-year-old, he acts like a gifted 13-year-old. If you learn one thing from this movie is not to use the word retarded. He wakes up from a coma and his character is just moronic, and not kid-like, just dumb. He was smart as a 13-year-old. He needed to go for more innocence, not more stupid. One of the things that's just been getting worse and worse in movies over the past 10 years is this self-deprecation thing. It all started with something about Mary and American Pie, and it's just gotten way out of hand. The casting wasn't bad. It was the classic one white guy, one black guy, one Hispanic guy, and one Asian guy for the complete cycle of racial stereotypes. I did like the casting and some of the acting, but the execution of the script was just not as funny as it should have been. I think the idea for the movie was good and it had potential, but it went nowhere fast. Check that, painfully slow. This movie could have easily been summed up in 10 to 20 minutes, and almost every funny scene was in the trailer. It was an act of sheer will to stay in my seat for the first 40 to 50 minutes. Let me give you an example of one of the things that was just stupid. Okay, the Asian guy used to do the robot dance when he was 13 and he did it well. So now it's 20 years later and now he has no idea of how to do the robot dance anymore. So now we have to sit through him relearning the robot dance, and it's painful. So when they're all 13, they all know how to dance, and now 20 years later they have no idea. If this is well done, I wouldn't have minded, but this is just time consuming. It wasn't that funny. If it were not for some decent dancing and mild humor sprinkled throughout the film, and in the end, this movie would have been a total waste. It was like someone wanted to make a big dance-off scene and thought, now we gotta write some filler for the rest of the movie, so we need 70 minutes of story so we can film our final dance-off scene. I really wanted to give a better review for Jamie. I like him. I like what he's done in the past. But this movie just wasn't that funny, and actually it was quite painful for at least 50 minutes of it. Some ideas make for good skits, and others make for a good movie. This actually could have been a decent movie, but more likely a better skit. And unfortunately, this movie missed the mark all the way around. So if you want a good laugh at the 80s, just watch I Love the 80s on VH1, and unfortunately, avoid Kickin' It Old School. For my overall rating, I give Kickin' It Old School 1 star.